Grab some popcorn and a favorite chair. The love of movies is why we're here. Press play and don't delay. Let Phil be our guide to a cinematic day. Phil at the movies, from the silver screen to his podcast stream. Phil's covering every movie dream. Phil at the movies. Phil at the movies.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Phil at the Movies. I'm, of course, your host, Phil, and you are listening to episode number 187 of this ongoing podcast that is, you guessed it, for the love of movies. And we are here in the midst of spooky season, my favorite time of the year, as evidence. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see, of course, the t-shirts that we're wearing tonight, as well as the appropriate background. So we're definitely going to be talking about a scary movie, and not just any scary movie, in fact. And no, we're not talking about the parody movies. We'll save that for next year. But this is the third anniversary of the much discussed, much maligned, much talked about third and final entry in David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, Halloween Ends. And tonight I am delighted to be welcoming back to the podcast Mr. Anthony Tapuzzo from the Never Split Up podcast, who, like me, is a bit of a fan of this entry in the Halloween series. So, Anthony, first off, welcome back, buddy, and happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season. Thank you so much for having me back. I love that we're doing a little annual Halloween spooky episode. We have to keep the tradition going. So I was so happy when you messaged me. Thank you for working around my hectic
Oh,
schedule. I'm
yeah.
happy we made it work. And I'm so excited to talk about this one. This is going to be fun.
Well, that's what I figured. I think we're three for three now with
Yes.
Halloween-centric episodes, and this one in particular, because as I teased at the top, there is still a lot of discussion and, frankly, passion about this
Mhm.
movie. Let me set the stage for you, everybody. Halloween Ends takes place 4 years after Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, which take place, of course, on the same night. 4 years later, Michael Myers has disappeared, and Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, has seemingly moved on or attempted to move on with her life. She has bought a home with her granddaughter Allison and is attempting to bury the ghost of Michael Myers. However, there is a local boy, Corey Cunningham, played by Rowan Campbell, and he falls victim to a tragic event one night when he is babysitting on the night of Halloween 2019. A misunderstanding, a series of unfortunate events, if you will, occur, and Corey is held responsible and blamed for the death of the child that he is babysitting. With Michael Myers MIA, Corey, in a sense, is viewed by the town as their proverbial boogeyman. Now, Laurie, trying to move beyond the traumas of Halloween, takes Corey under her wing, so to speak, and through circumstance, he and Allison develop a romance. But of course, this is a Halloween film after all, and Corey, who has been shunned by Haddonfield and much of the public, falls into another dire situation where he comes face to face with Michael Myers. But rather than be taken down by the elusive boogeyman, Corey and Michael share a strange and unspoken connection that seems to represent a passage, if you will, of evil from one individual to a next. What ends up happening next is Corey slowly transforming into a protege of Michael Myers, setting up a final confrontation with Laurie and the Shape himself in what is promised to be the final entry in the Halloween series, but of course, we know better than that. So that, of course, sets the stage for this film. Now, when it was released 3 years ago now, the movie was controversial, to say the very least. And I'll start with you, Anthony. Just tell me your immediate thoughts and reactions upon seeing this film when it first came out.
Okay, yeah, so I saw Halloween Ends on the Thursday preview night showing in a Dolby theater, so I saw it, right when it came out. I was highly anticipating. Obviously, it's my second favorite franchise, and I see a lot of people which I predicted was going to happen, that would come around to this movie like a couple years after it came out. I thought it would take maybe, 5, 10 years. And I'm thankful for that. But I'm someone who absolutely was in love with it the second the credits started rolling. So I was one who was championing this like the second it ended. I'm absolutely obsessed with Halloween Ends. I knew that, obviously we're in the community, so we see all promotional stuff. So I knew they were gonna do something different. It wasn't gonna be another Halloween 2018 or Halloween Kills. So I knew it was gonna be something different, but I didn't know how much I would appreciate the story. And I think what's important in this one is you really see the after effects of what Michael did in 2018 on Halloween night and how evil infected this town of Hannaffield. And I like how we see how Laurie, it's pretty surprising how we saw her in 2018, dealing with 40 years of trauma versus where she had to choose after all that preparation, and it still killed her daughter and so many people, that she made a choice to get help and move on and try to start fresh in Halloween. As I think it's a beautiful story. I think it's a poetic, quiet, but also still suspenseful Halloween movie. And I think it just really embodies everything that John Carpenter is about. I always say 2018 is pays respect to the OG, Kills pays respects like the 80s crazy slashers, and Ends really is a John Carpenter love letter. So I'm absolutely obsessed with it. We'll get into it in detail, but I think it's the best score of the David
Mm.
Gordon Green's trilogy. I think it's the best cinematography of not only the trilogy, but I think it might be my third favorite after the original two. Like cinematography wise, it's a beautiful looking movie. The opening scene is a banger. I love being in this is why theatrical releases are so important. You got to see it with the crowd because the jaw drop of the opening and just the
Oh,
what the fuck of like Michael Myers actually is getting killed in this one
yeah.
is crazy. I love the reactions. I think I mean, we and you, we love Laurie Strode. She's my second favorite Final Girl. I am a protagonist Final Girl person, and I absolutely love what they did, what Laurie Strode in this movie. And I think, honestly, Jamie Lee Curtis could have won an award for her performance in Halloween Ends. Obviously, I don't care about award shit, but she was amazing in this. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Halloween movie. And I think that when you have a movie called Halloween Ends, they made it a point, exclamation point, to end it in a very unique way. And say what you want. I love divisive movies because that means that someone's going to do something special. And we see what's happening now with Season of the Witch, how it was panned, but now it's a cult classic. And I know we feel different about Rob Zombie's Halloween too, but that's a very divisive movie. Now you have people, now that's over a decade old, people like, oh my God, that does have some crazy good things. And now they're come to respect that. And now, mark my words, I said after opening night when everyone started bitching about it, I'm like, this is a future cult classic that's going to go along with those two other entries that are very different and trying to do some different things. And this was the 13th installment of a franchise. We had our respect to the original in 2018, and we had our all out Michael Myers crazy, Jason Voorhees-esque killing machine and kills. So I didn't need a repeat of that at ends. I wanted something different. This was a very poetic, meditation on how evil infects a town. And in my opinion, people say it's so different from Halloween, but to me, it harkens back to the original the most because that really was a study, an examination on evil just through the lens of Michael Myers. I feel like this is an examination of what Michael Myers can do to a whole community, which is like that's how menacing he is. So I love it. I think it is John Carpenter's love letter, and we did a ranking a few years ago on our channel, and it stands the test of time. It's still my fourth favorite in the franchise. So I'm absolutely in love with this one. I'm so happy to be talking about it.
Just a little bit, right? No, I knew this film, like you said, would be divisive because it's doing something different. And the flip side is if this movie had been a repeat of Halloween 2018 or Halloween Kills, people would have still
Exactly.
bitched and moaned and been like, "Oh my God, we've already seen this." So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, with regards to either changing up the formula or playing it safe. And look, I'm all for horror films and particularly slasher films that are
Oh yeah.
willing to take risk. Um, not to like get on the Scream 6, bandwagon, but or not bandwagon, but I thought that film really played it too safe. Like that was just a conventional, all right, no, no one dies, everybody makes it out
Oh yeah.
alive. Like this film was willing to piss people off. And you have to respect that because it isn't like they made this film as just a giant middle finger. Like there is love and care that went into this film, and they were interested in telling a story, not just having another stock and slash movie, rinse and repeat. I think the movie has already entered the reappraisal phase
Me
because,
too.
like you said, people are already starting to look at it in a different lens. You mentioned the Rob Zombie films. Those have had a renaissance. And it was, I think, either a year or maybe 2 years ago, the Hollywood Reporter, and again, you take magazines for what they're worth,
Mhm.
but this film was ranked the number two slasher of the decade. That's pretty impressive for a film that is supposedly reviled amongst the fans and the public. I sort of look at, people like to say, "Oh, this movie was a disaster. It failed." Look, it made $104 million worldwide
While being released simultaneously on
on
streaming, which is a
exactly, which is
travesty, by the way.
oh no, imagine if they had not done that. But that's a whole
Right.
other issue. So I never bought the argument, oh, this film was a flop. Like, no, the movie
Not.
made money, okay? It didn't do as well as the other two, but this was by no means a devastating failure. And to that point, look at what happened with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I would argue that took a long time to find an audience because, of course, nobody wanted to talk about that film. It made no money when it first came out. It pissed off so many people that, of course, they did the knee-jerk reaction and brought Michael back in Halloween 4. But this movie, I think, has already seen a turnaround. And again, I'm not saying that this movie will be held in the same kind of graces as people now hold Halloween 3 Season of the Witch because I think the way it
It
is,
might though. It
but
might.
it might. I'm of the mindset that look, if you hate this film and you have your reasons, you're right. And if you love this film and you have your reasons, you're right. Like I think it's a film that it does cut both ways, but I think people who were quick to just say, "Oh no, this is not a Halloween film." Well, you have to actually kind of dig a little deeper and actually see what they were going for. And if you put it alongside the 78 film, it really is a wonderful answer,
Exactly.
if you will, to what that film was trying to say about evil never dies. This is sort of the next logical step in that argument.
I mean, I 100% agree. I think this actually is such a good bookend to the original. People who say it's not like that, I'm like, did you watch it? Because if you watch both of them back to back, they really do go hand in hand so well. And like we both has obviously me and Phil, we both love it, so we're on the positive side. But if you don't like it, let's debate and talk about it. Give me your
Right.
reasons why you don't like it and what issues you have. And you could be like, Michael wasn't enough. But all right, he was just in kills for the whole runtime. But like, I respect your opinions, but there's no way that. I feel like in this internet culture where everyone loves like the big bold tweets or headlines or whatever, you jump on the bandwagon and be like, trash. I'm like, but did you
Right.
watch it? And also,
Yep.
let's talk about it and give me your reasons why you just, let's have a healthy debate and I'll take your points and you take mine. And then I don't think how anyone, whether you don't like it or, go as far as saying you hate it, can't at least respect it for doing the things it's doing and doing something different, especially like we said this is the 13th movie in a franchise. You can only rinse and repeat. We love the formula, but for a franchise to take a bold swing, especially for its finale, it's the time to do it
Right.
because it's quote unquote the final entry. We know money talks and there'll be more, but for this saga and the Jamie Lee Curtis entries, this is it. So what better time to take a swing than the last one? And you cannot like it, but you have to respect the hell out of it. I happen to just love everything about it, and it's did what it's supposed to do, put an exclamation point on an ending for a movie. So people just have to realize that with these big franchises, you're never going to satisfy everyone because people are so passionate about
Right.
them, whether it's Scream, Halloween, or you go to Star Wars, whatever. People are so passionate they think that they know what the franchise should be, and then the other half says no, it should be this. So you're never going to satisfy everyone because it is a testament to how popular and awesome these franchises are because we invest so much into them. So you can't really worry about it as a filmmaker of who you're going to impress and who you're not. You just have to do your thing and then just put it out to the world, and then we just take it how we want because not every single person is going to respond to art the same way. So I happen to be someone who respects the hell and loves out of a divisive movie. I mean, Halloween 2, I'm in love with Rob Zombie, so I respect a weird divisive movie. And this movie gets weird, and I like it. I love it.
Well, let's dig into that
Yeah.
because right off the bat, this movie tells you that this is not like the
Mhm.
previous two. From the opening credits on, we see there is a callback that is by choice to the opening logo and credits for Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. The blue
Love it.
color, that was a deliberate choice, and I respect the hell out of that because they're sort of telegraphing right at the start, this is not going to go the way you think. And I love that.
And just the opening credits alone with the pumpkins is just so damn good. But yeah, David Gordon's letting us know, like, I'm getting freaky. And again, he's gotten so much hate, but I mean, I'm a huge fan of the trilogy.
Yep.
Obviously, we know which one's my least favorite is Kills, my favorite's Ends, and I love 2018, but it is the safest one. But again, whether you love what he did or not, you have to respect that he did something different with each entry of his trilogy. He didn't do the same thing and said, okay, Halloween night again, kill, he did something different and he made it unique in his own. So you can watch the trilogy one movie per night, and be like it's cohesive, but I'm like, damn, he really does show his flavor and how it can be so different. Now, I don't think whatever he did, I don't think he was, I think he was very passionate about Halloween. You could see when the studio's like, oh, you did great with this. Let's throw you another franchise. And you see what happened with The Exorcist, where I don't think he was as passionate about that franchise. But I really do think, again, whether you love it or not, he had that fan in him who really loved Halloween but wanted to make it his own. Whereas The Exorcist, it was like, let's throw money because he directed a hit horror trilogy. So, I mean, David Gordon Green alone, I give him major props. He really did his thing. But yeah, the opening credits alone show you that we're gonna do our Season of the Witch,
Right.
Rob Zombie, do what we want Halloween 2 thing with this, and love it or hate it, but we're doing it. So get on the ride.
And to that point, the opening is unlike anything we've
Mm.
seen before in a Halloween film. It starts off with a similar vibe. We have the introduction of Corey, and he's babysitting, and he's sort of babysitting a real, wise ass of a kid.
Oh,
No,
can't stand that
he
kid.
was really, he was, he was not a kid that you'd want to enjoy babysitting. But I love how before the film subverts our expectations, we're going into this thinking, okay, any minute now, because it takes place a year after 2018,
Right.
Michael has to show up. Again, you're sort of bought into that conventional wisdom, and I love that that goes out the window, or it takes a flying leap down the stairs, so to speak. And
Literally.
exactly, and that again is another signal to me, okay, we're in uncharted territory before. Because, I mean, how many times can you do the opening, Michael escapes, or Michael kills a random person? Like, we've seen that. We've seen Michael kill his sister. We've seen all of that play out. We've seen Michael come back to life. You got to do something different. And this one right here telegraphs in the first few minutes that this is unlike any Halloween film we've ever seen. Corey has been blamed more or less for the death of the kid Jeremy. And right off the bat, okay, we're going down a different lane here, and you guys just better buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
It's literally the only Halloween movie pre-credit besides Halloween 4, but the opening Halloween 4, I mean, just shows the credit before the opening scene happens. It's the only Halloween movie besides Season of the Witch that doesn't have Michael, an
Right.
active part of the opening. But like you said, when you're watching it, the town, again, which is why we'll get to another point. I know it's on our bullet list,
Mhm.
but why I think it's so important that the order of the trilogy is the way it is because the town feels the after effects and the threat of Michael, and the audience is waiting for Michael to show up in this opening scene and kill, we assume, the babysitter. But we
Right.
get our expectations subverted, and just the threat and how, we find out from the parents that Jeremy's scared about what happened with Michael. He can't sleep well. And then, Corey is kind of just like this quirky babysitter, and it's like he's also on edge. He probably shouldn't be watching their kid, but we have these things that we're just waiting for Michael to come in the picture. And then when Corey's going through the house looking for Jeremy, you're like, is Michael gonna pop up? Is he here? But just the threat of Michael alone is enough to kill someone in an opening scene without having him in it. And again, this movie has balls because we don't even wait until, 30 minutes into the movie. We're killing a kid, opening scene, which is ballsy. And I'm telling you, opening night, when I saw it opening night on Thursday, and then when I took my family to see it the Saturday, they were gasping. The freaking gasp and alls in the theater were just next level. And I just think it's so amazing that it elicited that reaction and Michael's not even present, but the threat of him is enough to put everyone on edge. That's why Halloween Ends needed to be the third chapter because we see how much evil, how much Michael affected this town. We find out after the opening title drop that people literally started killing people and going crazy because of how he infected and how people are dying, committing suicide. It's because of this evil that infected this town. That's what I think the whole thesis is of this movie is that evil changes shape and
Right.
Michael can have an effect and infect this whole community. So I really think that people will get to that bullet point, but people who say it should have been Halloween ends and then kills, I'm like, I don't know because I think the poetic meditation on what Michael calls specifically in Kills because 2018 and Kills took place in one night, but he did a lot of fucking damage in Kills. So we needed that effect to get to end. So the opening alone just demonstrates that so well.
Well, that's the thing. Michael, in terms of screen time, because I know that's been a bone of contention with a lot of people, the time that he is in this movie, the actual physical time we see him on screen, is about the same, and it may even be right on the button to the amount of screen time he has in the original Halloween
Boom.
film, which is again, we're talking like probably 11 or 12 minutes of actual screen time. But even when you don't see Michael in this movie, in a lot of ways, he's like the shark in Jaws. It's a
Exactly.
presence. You can feel him everywhere. And you make the point about this evil, almost as a virus, infecting the town of Haddonfield. I thought that was a really brilliant way to go because up until this point, with the exception of some flashes in the 2018 film Kills and the famous drunken beer bellies in Halloween 4, we really don't get much of Haddonfield, the town. We don't really
Right.
see the effects of Michael on the entire population outside of usually our core characters. I thought that was a really good way to go in this film because we've never seen how does a random person react to Michael Myers. And look, everybody processes grief and traumatic events differently, but I can tell you, growing up in a small town, the idea that people would somehow just all come together because of a tragedy is just bullshit. Like that's just
Right.
that is not human nature. Maybe that's pessimistic and that's not the way to look at it, but that is the reality of the situation. When people are afraid, they retreat into their corners, they react in various ways, and
They act out in crazy ways, right? They do
bingo.
these crazy things. Yeah.
I mean, again, not to like go down the COVID path, but I mean, like, I saw how people were during that time. Like, people lost their minds. No other way to say it.
Right.
And that's sort of what you see going on here. Obviously, this is a movie, but the sentiment is very similar to reactions to major events in real life. People, I mean, I'd love to think we all just come together and we, band to fight off the
It's not real
boogeyman.
life.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Well, and again, I think everyone was freaking out. I remember when this movie was in production, whenever David Gordon Green was like doing like, I'm gonna like comment on COVID. Like, what do you mean comment on COVID? But I think that was his version of commenting on a 4 year time span that really had major effects to a community where, COVID had major effects to a
Right.
society as a
Yeah.
whole. But I think I'm happy he didn't comment on COVID, but he commented on what the events of 2018 forever did to Haddon
Right.
Field. And I mean, Halloween Ends has like 20 minutes on the OG, so Michael Myers has the same screen time. But in my opinion, what makes Michael Myers different from all the other 80s slashers, like I love Kills, but it's a Jason Michael Myers movies, and he's front and center, slashing his way around town. What t scares me about Michael, like the OG, is I want to feel his presence the whole movie,
Right.
which I feel and ends. And to me, Michael Myers is the boogeyman who lurks in the shadows and is, behind the scenes and hiding behind the tree. Like we literally see in this movie him stalking. He's a stalker. So I think that ends brings that back to the max. And that taking away whether or not you love the character of Corey, I happen to absolutely love what they do. I know some people are like, why is Corey in it? But taking that away too, what Michael's doing behind the scenes and he's making sure that he stays alive and killing in his methodical way because he was severely injured and
Right.
kills. I think that makes him even scary because he's slowly trying to gain his power back to go after Lori or the town again.
Well, that's actually a great point because I love how Michael and Laurie truly mirror each other in this
Hmm.
film. Laurie tries to move beyond the events that defined her for 40 years. She leaves her cave, if you will. And Michael, because he is physically injured, but also, if we want to like get psychological, the metaphysical scars that he has, he retreats into a cave. And they're both sort of living in their own little silos. And it, of course, is the unifying figure, if you will, of Corey Cunningham that brings these two out of their respective corners, if you will.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to see the effect Corey has on Lori because she's at the start, she's kind of a quirky grandmother. She's making
Love
pumpkin
it. I love
pie.
it.
Like it's obvious. I mean, we'll get into the whole Jamie Lee Curtis of it
Yeah.
all, but yeah, I mean, it's a different Lori. It's almost as close as Lori has been to that morning and afternoon of Halloween 1978. She's just sort of a bubbly, you know, quirky, fun individual, but through her interactions with Corey, much like with Michael in the first film, you see this transformation, almost a return to the Laurie that we saw in the previous two films. And then vis-a-vis Michael and his interactions with Corey, you see Michael kind of come back to life or go back to what we expect him to be. I mean, there's that great scene when Michael finally kills again for the first time in 4 years. It's like he's just been unearthed from a coffin or a cobweb, and he's back to life, so to speak. And I
Right.
love how both of these characters, through their interactions with Corey, not only come together for that final confrontation, but in essence, sort of come out of their respective shells that they end up going in post the events of Halloween 2018.
It's just so brilliant. Even if we keep talking about how it goes back to the original, but I even want to bring it back to David Gordon Green's original 2018 that he got into the franchise. Lori retreated into her cage. She's in her cage in 2018.
Right.
Michael Myers broke out of
Yep.
his cage in 2018, and Sartain kind of brought them together. In this one, Michael retreated to his cage. Lori broke out of her cage and is trying to move on, and it took a different kind of person in Corey to bring them back together. So David Gordon Green alone kind of has this beautiful little arc with
Yeah.
2018 that ends on that. So again, people don't take note of the little details and things, whether you like it or not, he's trying, and you can't say that he's not putting passion behind this project because he really took his time and thought of, in my opinion, is beautiful. I just think it's so masterfully done, and I just don't understand how people can at least, respect the details and little things. I mean, talk about it's so beautiful alone just to watch this movie and look at it. I think it's beautiful looking.
Cinematography wise, it's right up there with the originals. There's
Yeah, I
just
agree.
a look and a vibe to this film. One, it really does feel like we are in the Midwest during Halloween season. There's just that atmospheric vibe. And all of the different sets, whether we're going into the underground sewer where Michael is hiding out, or even Laurie's house itself, there is a wonderful
I want to live
aesthetic.
in that house
I
in
know,
Lori's
right?
house.
No, it's such a great house. I mean, it's much better than her, wannabe prison cage of the first film. But I love how every set piece kind of speaks to what is going on in this film. Even the house for Jeremy at the end. It's this sort of a mansion, but there's almost a cold feeling in that house, like especially when Corey's
Right.
going around trying to find him. I love how all of the different settings kind of project the not only atmosphere, but what this film is trying to say. Like, I felt like everything here was intentional.
100%. I mean, the John Carpenter influence. I mean, to me, one of my favorite John Carpenter movies is Christine. That's all over this movie.
Hmm.
But again, one of my favorite 80s movies is Lost Boys, and you have that kind of like cool Corey and Allison vibe in this too, that
Yeah,
has Lost Boys vibes. And I mean, just Laurie alone, what David Gordon Green is trying to say, whereas in 2018, everyone, literally Sandra, who we find out didn't die in Kills,
right.
she literally says in Kills like that crazy lady again, who was warning everyone that, he was going to come back. She had to prepare, but people just dismissed her as a drunk. Whereas in Ends, she's literally saying, Sandra's sister is saying, you provoked him.
Yeah,
And you caused it. So again, in the words of Annie, like poor Lori, like she literally poor Lori, like she can't, she's damned if she does and she's damned if she doesn't. She cannot catch a break, and she was trying to prepare a town for the evil that's going to come back. And in Ends, instead of blaming the actual boogeyman, they're blaming a victim
right.
that tried to warn everybody and tried to defeat him. But no, it's her fault because she provoked him, which is absolutely not true. But that's again a commentary on how a town reacts
Yep.
to a tragedy and how if Michael's not around anymore, we got to find someone to blame. And Laurie's the closest one to him, so we got to blame her. So again, to me, it's a fascinating study that David Gordon Green is putting on display.
That's the thing. And the fact that Michael goes missing, and it isn't like he was killed in the last film. He disappears, and
Right.
I think that only adds fuel to the fire. That okay, we don't have a body, we don't have closure, and we know how people react in our real world where there isn't closure. People
Right. Who are you gonna
want
blame? What are you gonna do?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's always victim blaming or pointing the finger at somebody, and again, maybe this movie cuts too close to home. It really does kind of act as a commentary on the real world. But I mean, to me, the best kind of horror films are ones that shine that spotlight on what is happening in the world around us and can be topical in a ways. And I think all of these films, in many ways, offer a specific commentary
Right.
about either what is going on or was going on in a certain moment, or kind of larger big picture, what is a recurring theme or idea that happens throughout human history.
And it's even better when a director and can do a story and tell a movie and have that commentary without being preachy and making it feel organic and putting the
Right,
story first because I don't want to be, hit over my head and say, "Ha, you see that? That's just this commentary like, ha, listen to that. Do this, do that." David Gordon Green always puts the story of Michael Laurie and Halloween and Haddonfield before the commentary. He
right.
adds a social commentary within the story, and I appreciate that because I don't want to be hit over the head and told how to think or what
No,
to do. He really does it organically. And when a filmmaker can do that, that's when you're doing something special where I could take that, but I could also just take it as being part of a good story of the movie, and not even take that if I don't want to.
exactly. Now that's the best kind of a message, if you will, where everything is subtle and again, people can pick and choose what they want instead of being either force fed or, like you said, hit over the head repeatedly. Like nobody likes that. I don't like that, especially from a horror
It
film.
makes the audience feel stupid too, because when we get like again, I love Halloween Kills. We'll get to some of the commentary and so I'm like, I get it. You didn't have to tell me that. Just show me. But Halloween Ends really he reversed course in Halloween Ends. Is like I'll show you how smart I can be. And
Ex
it's not preachy, and it doesn't feel like he's being like telling us like I'm like a prestige. It's not prestigious. It's not any of
no.
that stuff. It's just so smart, and to have it in the Halloween movie is so good. How would you think about the soundtrack? Because obviously John Carpenter's
Oh,
back with the whole trilogy, and he kills it in every one. But I think specifically this one because I love the traditional throwbacks to Halloween, but this one alone, you have your Halloween theme, but he does something different where it feels like Halloween, but it does something different for me. This score is so damn good. It's almost a throwback to his other movies mixed intertwined with Halloween, and I think that this is my favorite soundtrack of his trilogy, of
I'm
this
s
trilogy.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because if there is one Halloween soundtrack that I have probably listened to more times than I can count in the last few years, it is this specific one.
Hell yeah.
There's just something different here. And again, wonderful kudos that John Carpenter not only was
Legend.
involved in these films, but came back to do the score. I mean, what
I love that
a
man.
great inclusion. You know, the
He
guy
didn't
is
get
so
a
content,
paycheck.
like,
Yeah. He
playing
loves
video
getting his
games.
paychecks and just saying, give me an executive producer credit, but he put himself to work as the soundtracks for all three of them, but specifically this one. I mean, guys, if you just, even if you don't like the movie, if you want to listen to it like mid-September or getting to October to get in that fall Halloween mood, goddamn, I
I
used
was
to, I mean, I
listening
still
today.
do. I work out and I just
Yep.
walk the dogs to this soundtrack and it's so good. I mean, I know the name. The Junkyard, Corey
Yep.
and Michael, the fight and the
The fight.
procession
Oh, the fight.
are
Yeah.
my favorite score, my favorite, sound pieces on this one. And they're just
Yep.
so damn good. Even before her eyes when Laurie's
Oh,
like gonna
yep.
do it. Like it's so
Yep.
and we get the whole throwback. I mean, I just think he's on where Halloween 2018 Halloween Kills. I love him so much because we have our throwbacks, the
Right.
shape
Right.
stalks, we have our throwbacks to Halloween and Halloween 2, the originals. This one just does something completely different, but still feels like the world of Halloween, and it gives me chills. I mean, the procession we'll get to the sequence when we get to the end of the movie, but that gives me tears in my eyes at the end of that movie, and a lot of it has to do with not only Jamie Lee Curtis's, acting as the
Right.
survivor in that sequence, but the score is so good.
Oh, it's a phenomenal score. It is his best one of the trilogy, bar none.
100%.
I hear bits and pieces of like the fog,
Exactly.
even
Oh, the
almost
fog's
like
all over this
yeah,
too. Yeah.
oh yeah, the fog. They knew what they were doing with the John Carpenter references, but there's even like some subtle nods. Like I pick up like the Thing a little bit here. Like
Yep.
it really does feel like he was sort of taking all
It's
of his
everything.
scores and just sort of combining it together through the channel of Halloween to make this, I mean, it's an overused word, but just epic score. It
It
really
really
is.
is.
It just feels monumental when you're listening to it.
I was gonna say I even get like hints of the Prince of Darkness. So
Yeah.
let's get to the Prince of Darkness in this movie, Corey Cunningham, because he's a divisive
Well,
character for sure.
you know, I had this discussion a few weeks ago with Andrew Grievous, the author of the new
Okay.
book,
Oh, excellent.
yeah, horror in Haddonfield. Which again, shout out to him and to that book. But he's also a Halloween Ends fan, so we're
Oh yeah,
represent we're rep
we
yeah
love that.
we're representing. But we had a very good discussion about sort of when this series has attempted to go in a different direction and whether or not people, oh, maybe Jamie Lloyd should have been
Right.
the killer. And we both said the same thing in our discussion. based on how people reacted to Corey, there is no way in hell people would have gotten on board with a 9-year-old girl running around as the new Michael Myers. I think there's sort of like rewriting of history if people think that's the way they should have gone with Halloween 5, because based on the reaction to Corey taking over for Michael, quote unquote,
Mm.
I think people would have lost their mind in the worst possible way. But putting that aside, let us unpack the Corey Cunningham of it all. Unless you have any comment or thoughts about the comparison with Jamie and what could have
Well,
been.
the thing I'll say, some people might call me a hypocrite, but the thing with Jamie Lloyd is I I was like, this franchise will not survive if she takes the mantle. But also, we knew going to this one it's called Halloween Ends.
Yeah,
So Corey Cunningham was never gonna be the new Michael Myers. And if anyone thought that, I'm sorry, you don't know like film 101, like what they were trying to say
yeah,
in this movie. If Daniel Harris was running around being, Jamie Lloyd killer for the next 5 films, I'm like, that's a little too much. And I always said for that one, I actually I mean, watch our episode on Halloween 5 that we did last year. I actually really appreciated that it just showed the effects that Michael had on Jamie Lloyd rather than be like a team. Like, I would have been cheesy team up, niece and uncle
yeah.
together. But I think if there ever was a chance to do this, it would be in the movie called Halloween Ends, which is why I don't again think that Corey Cunningham should have been introduced in Kills. I think that this was a very contained,
Right.
story, and Corey Cunningham was never meant to be in more than one entry in this saga. And I think it's fascinating where we just said how the town blames Lori for the Michael thing, where also the town kind of blames Corey as an evil person after the tragedy that happened with the little boy, because again, they have to find someone to blame and they have to find their new boogeyman. And it's just so fascinating to see how David Gordon Green and crew said that how Lori deals with it to become triumphant
Hmm.
and how she deals with it versus how Corey Cunningham leans in to the
Right.
darkness and the evil. That's just you can see not only how the Halloween Ends is about. It's always going to be about Laurie and Michael, but how Laurie and Corey handle evil in two
Right.
different ways, and that just again props up our final girl more, and it also shows how much Michael and how much trauma and tragedy can affect someone who's not in the mental space to deal with it as well as Laurie. So Corey Cunningham leaned into it, whereas Laurie Strode overcame it. So I just think it's a beautiful, again, right there. Like, I think that Corey Cunningham was the secret sauce to
Hmm.
this movie. And I think, again, Rohan Campbell, amazing
Oh yeah.
performance. Again, another one who should have been nominated for awards. I think that he got a lot of hate because we don't want to see anyone besides Michael Myers be Michael Myers. I'll say the only scene in this movie that I don't like, every sequence in this movie to me is I would say this movie is borderline a masterpiece for me. I just don't like that David Gordon Green showed Corey Cunningham getting the mask from Michael.
I'm
I
with you
wish
on that.
I would have rather just seen him come out of the tunnel with the mask. I didn't need to see them literally fight. Don't show me that. Just like have it happen off screen and then
Right.
Corey got the mask. I don't want to see Michael struggling. He kind of redeemed himself with Michael sitting up and saying, "Yo, I'm gonna get my fucking mask back." And I'm going to take over. We knew that was going to happen, but I don't need to see Corey overtake the boogeyman of the franchise. That's the
Right.
only little thing I don't like with the Corey Michael stuff. But other than that, I think it's fascinating to see what Corey did in this movie and how he took on the mantle and wanted to be the new boogeyman.
Right. And to that point, because I have often debated this idea now for 3 years, because the movie plays it smart, where on the one hand, you can just read into Corey, he is a tragic victim of
He is.
circumstance,
Yeah.
and because of the events that unfolded, he, like you said, succumbs to the evil. He gives in to his darker impulses. And I think that's a perfectly valid interpretation. And I think on the one hand, the movie is setting it up that way. At the other end, and this is where I think things, you can always read into interpretation. Was Corey an innocent bystander, or was there maybe something there all along? And I like that the movie never fully commits or answers one way or the other. Because again, in sort of a throwback to Michael in the original film, we don't know why he decided to pick up a
Right.
knife and kill his sister that Halloween. And in some ways, you could interpret it as the same thing happened with Corey. You know, the way the opening is set up, I think there's two plausible ways you could see it. It unfolds as we are shown and told it happens, that it was an accident. Jeremy fell, but you could also read into it, well, did Corey maybe have something more
Always
going
in
on
there.
there? You
Right.
know,
Right.
was this just sort
Well,
of the outlet for his boogeyman to emerge?
and the movie's so smart because we have that, in my opinion, like people are like, it's not, there's not enough killing, not enough blah 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 action. I think the beautiful moments, again, the moment in the bar when Lindsay introduces Lori to Jeremy's dad, and they literally have that
Yes,
conversation of, you know, I don't know if it was always in him, or I don't know if we created that in him because
right.
we blamed him for the death and we really like turned on him. He's like, all I know is that one day what I saw behind his eyes wasn't the Corey I saw that night, saw that years ago. So again, they're just posing the question, they're never answering it, but each answer is valid.
Right.
It could have been always within him, and this just brought it out, much like Michael just snapped that one night and killed his sister, or the town could have turned him into the boogeyman. And this is all on them. So the questions that, again, it's nature versus nurture. And
Right.
it's just the questions that this movie is posing, I think, is very smart. And I think some people take it being asking this question that it's being pretentious, but I don't see it as being pretentious. I see it as being a very clever, commentary on what Michael Myers can do to a society and a community.
Right. And again, as we saw what happened with Laurie in the first film, it turned her
Hmm.
into a recluse. It destroyed her life and marriage and relationship with her daughter. We see what happens in this film to not only the town, but in the case of Corey. You know, it's very easy to see that if there had been Michael running around that night, or if Michael had been killed or captured, it probably unfolds very differently for Corey in terms of how
Oh
he
yeah.
is viewed in the town's eyes. And that's again sort of the underlying tragedy that this film sort of layers on top of everything, that it's a case of wrong place, wrong time for
Hmm.
everybody involved.
And we also say we don't know if like Corey's home life, if his mom was that much of a freaky freak,
Right?
like after the events, or like if she was always like that. So he had a pretty messed up childhood. I don't know if you saw David Gordon Green, he said like a major influence on top of like John Carpenter being amazing was the 80s movie Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker. Have you seen the movie?
Yes,
It
yes.
is, I feel like the Corey and mom relationship, guys, watch that movie if you haven't because it's so, like, he definitely took influence from that. And I actually really like that movie. But I really see, I think Corey's mom, I get the actress, they said she was over the top. I think she killed it. And I think it was just so, like, God damn, this poor kid, but also, like, the route you're taking and the path you're going down is not the answer. Um, but I do think it's beautiful how like they mirror the opening scene of Halloween 1978 with when he goes back to kill his mom. Again, David Gordon Green, this is how you do Easter eggs and this is how you do callbacks. It's very subtle, but it's all intertwined with the story. And it's not about just saying like, hey, you see that? You see that? It all feels natural. But I really do love Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, and I think that I love that he based the relationship between Corey and his mom based off that movie. It's fascinating.
Oh no, because there's definitely something creepy going on there.
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I mean, just the dinner scene alone where they're
Oh.
having pasta, like I still get,
What's it, the custard for dessert? Once
yeah,
you go get custard
no
for
custard
dessert.
for good, for bad boys. It's like,
I'm like,
okay,
he's an
there's,
adult.
yeah, there's something very unhealthy going on here. Like, I mean, yeah, again, I love that the movie leaves open those doors, which again, if we are just to look at Corey through the lens of what turns somebody into
Right.
this kind of a person, what makes a serial killer, if you will, sort of like what Rob Zombie was doing. with his films.
This is handled very in a better way than
Oh God, yeah,
that.
it's
For
yeah,
sure.
it's not with the Rob Zombie influence, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No white horses and
Yeah,
Sherry
no.
Moon
No, no, no,
Zombie,
no.
but no, there's something about sort of giving us a portrait of somebody in distress and what kind of situation has to unfold in order to affect someone like in the way that Corey goes through. And I feel like if we just sort of view Corey through that lens, he's ultimately a tragic figure
It is, yeah,
because
very tragic.
he's one, he is a victim of circumstances. He is in a lot of ways searching for community, which is never going to be there for him. And he's also searching for an identity. You know, we sort of see three Corys. There's the Corey at the beginning, who's sort of the helpful neighbor down the street who's going to go to college and he's riding his bicycle. There's the Corey post Halloween 2019 that's sort of a little jaded, a little scarred, working in a junkyard. And then there's the Corey who, after his encounter with Michael Myers, is this dark, reclusive individual. And it's again, he's never able to
Right.
be satisfied. He's never able to find his place or purpose. Even when he's with Allison, it's an
I love
ill-fated
them.
romance. You know it isn't going to work, and that falls apart for him. Which, and again, a lot of ways, it's fitting the way his character goes out because sort of
Hmm.
born by tragedy ends with tragedy, but at the same time, you can't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the guy because it's like
Exactly.
he's just been fucked over his entire life and then finally to go out just another victim to Michael Myers. I mean that really is sort of the exclamation point on a shitty life.
I mean, it just showcases how much, I mean, how much can release one go through before they snap.
Right.
And obviously, I mean, this is getting really relatable to real life, but violence is never the answer. But unfortunately, Corey, he just couldn't take any more
Right.
abuse from not only his home life, but he loves Alice. He ha loves hanging out with Allison. He has a great night with her. But then once Jeremy's mom sees him at that bar
He
and like
snaps.
he snaps and he's brought back. And then right after that, he's pretty much left for dead by these bullies before he first interacts with Michael. I mean, they just throw him away like a piece of trash. Like, oh, don't tell, like, let's leave him. They freaking threw him off a bridge or whatever,
I,
left him for dead. So he's like, I mean, how much can one go through before they snap? And it's almost like Allison. I love a lot of people talk bad about Allison this way, but I just love how I mean, we've people forget that she lost her mom, her dad,
her
and her boyfriend
friends. Yep.
in a single night, and her friends. Um, and she just has her grandmother, Lori there, and then she's just very intrigued by Corey, and I almost think she's intrigued because sees that this is someone who's been through trauma like me, maybe not the same way, but he's been through some fucked up shit, and she wants to help him bring it. She doesn't want to see him go to the darkness. She wants to see him come to the light with her, and that's why it's kind of like a weird. She's like so sexually attracted to him, and she's so like charged by him. She
Right.
wants to help him and bring him out of that darkness, but she's also almost attracted to his darkness because she's had so much experience with darkness. So I really love what they did with her character. And I just think Corey is just all around, like you said, I think he's a tragic character who unfortunately wasn't as strong as someone like Laurie and eventually Allison by the
Right.
very end of this movie. I mean, we don't like how Allison treats Laurie in this movie, but we have to understand from Allison's
It's
perspective
a
all the
reaction.
loss that she
Yeah.
has been through. And, how much can a young woman take either like that? She's gonna have to lash out on someone. And unfortunately, Laurie's the only one left to lash out on. Um, but I just think it's fascinating with the whole Corey thing. I do think I think it's so fascinating and really a kudos to Rowan Campbell and David Gordon Green that we have a character who we feel so much sympathy for, but we're also like, dude, what you're doing is wrong, and like we're almost like, oh, thank God, Michael, like take him out at the end, like get
Right.
rid of that. There's no
No,
saving him.
no, I mean, Michael was that was a mercy killing. No, but there's something that's very interesting because everybody who comes in contact with Michael, 9 out of 10, they're going to end up dead. That's just the way it goes. But yet, in the context of this series, there are three individuals who have come into contact with Michael and have, quote, survived.
Right.
Lori, in, of course, the original film, is saved by Dr. Loomis from Michael killing her. Allison is saved by her mother in Halloween Kills. Corey is the only one of these three who comes into contact with Michael, and there's nobody there to rescue him. Now,
Right.
we saw, of course, what happened with Karen in Halloween Kills. She meets the end of a knife, but you could argue in a lot of ways what happens to Corey is much worse because there's this whole like psychic evil thing going on, this transference
Love it.
of power, and I think that's again sort of gets to this idea that you don't know what is going to happen if you come in contact with Michael. And
Exactly.
as it was with Allison and Lori, they were fortunately saved by two other people, but Corey was left alone, and it was just him and Michael. And again, we see the end result that happens with him. And it's just sort of an interesting sort of call and response to how each of these three characters respond to their uh, interactions with Michael, as well as sort of their situation where had somebody else not intervened, who knows what would have happened. I mean, we see even at the end of this film when Michael has Laurie by the throat and Allison shows up at the last minute.
Love it.
Again, we don't
Oh.
know what could have happened, but I mean, again, it's a situation where somebody is able to, sort of stop whatever, God forbid, was going to happen.
And I just think that people who like what Michael, that's not Michael. He would have just killed Corey. Michael is super weak, and I think not only he sees behind Corey's eyes and
Right.
sees the evil within him,
They had that
but I
look.
think that I think don't think that Michael is just saying like, oh, like he can be a killer too. I think Michael is, in my opinion, being like, I can use his evil to get strong again.
Right.
He's using Corey. I don't think it's a cop out to just like let's team up forever and be a little, bro team. I think Michael's intention was always to use Corey to a point, and I don't know if it played out if Corey didn't hunt down Lori, I don't know how long Michael would have kept him, but the end goal for Michael was always to just use Corey to get his strength back and have Corey do whatever he had to do in the meantime before Michael can get his strength back and become the boogeyman
Right.
again. So I don't think it's a cop out to have Michael let Corey live because I think Michael was always just using Corey to get him back to his full capability.
Well, that's the thing. When we first see Michael, he is this decrepit old
Right.
man, to put it bluntly. And I think that's another cool visual
It's creepy
reference
too.
that
He's
that
creepy in it.
oh no,
Yeah.
there's almost something like he's the troll under the bridge. He's this, we're not used to seeing Michael in such a fragile and almost sickly state that to
Right.
then see him transform back into the boogeyman that we know, it really is poetic in a lot of ways. And again, I think it sort of speaks to this idea that evil cannot be contained. It sort of is, it's it's generational, it's passed on. It's almost like a curse, if you will, or a virus. And again, we've seen in the other Halloween films they've explored the idea of transference
Right.
or curses, and this kind of just feels like in one way is the next logical step in that possible storytelling, but also how do you sort of narrow everything down and make it concise in a way where it feels part of this larger story that they've been telling.
And it also just shows that like not everyone could be Michael Myers, but
Right.
everyone has evil within them.
Yeah.
And you don't know what will bring it out of them. And of course, Corey, we see. I mean, Corey is so. I mean, we say we sympathize with Corey, but it's also so sick that he's interacting with Michael and killing him, and he's going like sleeping with Allison, knowing her like all this stuff with Allison. He's doing it after, and like he's not a good. That's not good. He really
No.
fucked with it. And people hate on Allison's movie, but like what she's kind of like manipulated by Corey too in her own way with all that. And what he's doing to her is like so not cool. I really think Andy Matichak does not get enough credit as like a
She
final girl
doesn't.
scream queen in this in this like trilogy. And I hope she comes back to horror again soon. But she was amazing, and I loved her. I love that I was so upset with her when how she treats Lori, but I'm like, she finally clicks in her head, and she comes back and she does help Lori and saves the day, and she, snaps Michael. I just think I love the bond between Allison and Lori.
That is such a great segue because if anything, these three films underscore the sort of meaning of family
Mhm.
and togetherness, and it's really fascinating to see where their relationship started in the previous film. And actually, I don't think they even share a line of dialogue together in Halloween Kills. So it's really kind
Probably
of
not.
nice to see. Yeah, it's really interesting to see their bond, if you will, at the beginning where everything appears hunky-dory and
Right.
normal, but there's almost this veneer that something maybe not quite right under the surface. And I love how there were like flashes of anger and resentment that she has towards Lori that ultimately boil out in that confrontation they have in her bedroom.
And it's like Allison, this is not the time. Like poor Lori, like it's just like because obviously Lori's my number one girl, but it's like Allison, what are you doing? But it's also like you have to understand her perspective of you don't obviously she doesn't mean what she's saying. Like 'cause she even says you provoked him, you did this, and now my parents are dead. I'm like, yo, that's Lori's daughter you're talking about though. Like so
Right,
obviously you're coming at it from a not nice place, but again, we are all human and all the buildup, unfortunately, you take it out on someone. And unfortunately, poor Lori is getting it. And I love how when Allison leaves, I mean, I knew my girl Lori would never do this and would never kill herself, but
right.
I just love how she just uses that emotion to get her amped up to go after Corey in the end. It's so smartly played. And Jamie Lee Curtis is so friggin' good in this movie.
I think it's her best performance
It
of
is.
the three films
It
of this
is.
trilogy. I love how, I said at the beginning, we get to see a slight return to Lori pre the night of 1978.
Yeah, you
I
have her
love
twirling
her.
her hair, you
Yeah,
have her
she's
everything. First of all, her and Frank, talk about a scene with no that scene to me is so important in the grocery store because it shows the humanity of them as well. And that's important.
well, no, and kind of looking at Frank's story, he even says it. He looks at it. He got a second chance at life.
Mhm.
He's sort of moved on with, if you will. He's trying to find happiness. Lori, by all accounts, has said she's moved on, but of course we know deep down that she hasn't reached the level of where Frank is at. And obviously,
Right.
how can she? She's got her unfinished business with Michael, but I love how we're at least getting glimpses of, I guess, what life could have been had Michael not entered her life in 1978. And I also love how she has a picture on the wall of her and Annie
Oh, that gave me chills.
and Linda, because if I have one critique of 2018, and I adore that film, but I wish there would have been a reference or a nod to Linda and Annie, whether it was Laurie visiting their grave or something like that. I think that would have really tied together 78 and 2018 all the better. So I like that we get that subtle reference to her two best friends that she lost in that horrific night of 1978. I thought that was, again, kind of a really builds up to this has been a 44-year ordeal for Laurie.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I think that's why Halloween Ends is my favorite of the trilogy because to me, and like slashers, I mean, my favorites are Halloween and Scream, and we have two of arguably the biggest female protagonists in both franchises. I think what speaks to me is character development and
Right.
character moments. And that's why Halloween Ends. Again, you have that moment. I see the picture of not only her daughter, I'm like, oh, she lost her daughter, but then you see she lost all of her friends. She saw Linda and Annie, and they're still, deep within her because she pays respect to them. She has pictures of them. I just think that is such a powerful arc for Lori to finally take out the boogeyman and be
Right.
the ultimate survivor in the end. And it's beautiful the way it plays out. What do you think about Michael's death? Like, I just think that okay, so if
Yeah.
people complain about their final showdown, it's not long enough, it's not this. I'm like, but they just had a showdown in 2018. And that was one. I mean, did you want this identical thing? To me, it was very beautiful that Lori did a little trickaroo on Corey,
Yep.
shot him, didn't kill him. I mean, she shouldn't have pulled the knife out and all that blah blah. Allison came back, so that would, I mean, but Lori was acting on instinct and she
Yep.
was trying to protect Allison. But I think that after Michael took out Corey, it was a beautiful, beautiful reunion for them two. And I think that I mean, this woman is she's pushing, she's in her 60s. We can't have a 90-minute movie of them fighting. I mean, I don't know what you guys want. I think it felt natural, and I liked it. It was a very again, this movie is about like the intimacy of that, and I felt like it was a very intimate fight, and I just thought it was so brutal. I mean, she literally like bleeds him out. She slices his wrists. He gets. I mean, we get this is the kind of throwbacks I love. We get the needle
The
in her
needle.
head.
Yep.
That to me is like perfect Easter eggs where it's not like again bashed over my head, but it's like just comes into play organically in the action. I think it was beautiful. I loved that Allison came back. I loved when Michael grabbed Lori's throat. She was just like, just fucking do it. Like, do it. Let's go. Like, and to
Right.
get the throwback to all of their relationship from 1978 to, 44 years later. I think it was beautifully done. And I just think his actual death scene in the procession, again, to me was absolutely beautiful. I got chills and I had tears in my eyes when just watching Jamie Lee Curtis walk up to whatever you want to call that thing, the grinder, whatever the hell you want to call
Right.
it, was freaking beautiful. She's finally able to say goodbye to her boogeyman. It's like this is Lori's story, not Michael's. And as someone who loves protagonists and Final Girls, I'm like,
Right.
yes, this is what I was waiting for. So I thought the fight was very perfectly placed within the structure and story of the movie, and I didn't want it to be any longer than it was because I feel like it wouldn't have been as realistic.
Well, that's the thing. By this point, we have had this would be the third sort of mano a mano fight between
Right.
Michael and Laurie. And 2018 was special because it was their first time together, 20 years since obviously the last time she and him went toe to toe. We don't count Resurrection because that's a whole other kettle of fish. That's a rotted pumpkin. But so you aren't going to rehash 2018 because that was an action adrenaline film. And I love how in that movie Laurie is all about I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him. And yet even though they trap him in the basement, there is something incomplete about it because the very thing she wanted to do, she technically doesn't do in that film. And again, obviously
Right.
we could get a whole, the whole side of, sequels and whatnot. But like just in terms of her character arc, she doesn't get to do the thing she has been wanting to do for 40 years. And so I feel like that really carries into this movie because as much as she tries to put everything behind her, she cannot truly heal and move on until he is dead. And so when you get to this fight, it's a different fight from obviously 2018 and what we saw in Halloween H2O, which I mean, that you're never going to top that. That was
No, you're not.
a
No, you're
once in
not.
a lifetime, that, and why should you? Like that, it would be
Right.
foolish to even try.
And they already did it. They already did that. So you don't do it again.
Exactly. So you have to do something different. You have to do something cathartic. And that's how I felt with this fight. First off,
Agreed.
the score by John Carpenter, it just pumps you up, man. It really does. And I remember watching this opening night and, she's going back and forth, there's the scene where, he's trying to put her hand down the garbage
Oh, it's so
disposal.
good. Nice throwback to H2O, by the way.
And that again, little Easter eggs. But she's bashing him, and like I remember saying to myself, as I'm watching it, God damn it, kill him, Lord. Like it's
Yeah,
all
you're
come to
literally
like
cheering
you
for
want,
her.
yeah, like
Right.
I kill him, Lord. Just put an end to it, and she does. And it's not in this sort of like burn the house down, shoot him 1,000 times, chop his head off.
Right.
It is a very cathartic release of 44 years of
Emotional.
pain and suffering and all of the trauma and baggage she has carried. And again, I love her little monologue where she's like, I've run from you, I've tried to contain you, I've
Oh,
tried to forgive
don't even get me
you.
started on that.
And like
Chills.
it's like she's like, I thought you were the boogeyman, but you're just a man who's about to stop breathing.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
she
my God.
completely grinds him down to
It's so
nothing.
good.
And
First of all, that
it's
delivery
fitting.
is,
Oh,
oh
it's when I
God.
say this is her best performance of the trilogy, like she is killing it with this film.
Mhm.
Like there's a reason she is an Oscar-winning actress. Like she
Right.
just has that presence and his ability to deliver a line, but she is just pouring her heart and soul here. And again, you feel like this has been a 44-year journey. Like this has been from October 31st, 1978 to October 31st, 2022. This has been a long time coming, and it is raw, but yet it is also poignant in a way. Like
It is,
even
yeah.
after she lets him bleed out, like the fact that they are holding hands,
Oh, I love that, by
they
the way.
finally do the thing that almost happened in 20 or in H2O.
H2O, yeah.
I love that that is the way it is because it's almost an acknowledgement of okay, I have beaten you. He's almost accepting it in some weird
It's
way,
so
and it's
beautiful.
almost sort of an expression of humanity, which is again something you never think about with Michael Myers. It's something Loomis would never talk about with regards to Michael Myers. So the fact that this woman who has been intertwined with him and he's been intertwined with her for 40 plus years to have that sort of human moment like it's just so raw and
Oh,
authentic that it just I don't I love this ending. That's a long way of saying
it's
I
so,
love this ending.
it's so perfect.
Know.
Well, I mean, I can't help but bring Scream back into everything. But again, one of the most divisive Scream movies, Scream 3, my favorite part of that movie is when Sydney holds hands with Roman and she shows that humanity of you're my brother, like you're a bad person, but I'm gonna show you this respect as you're dying. I get what you're going through, and I feel like Lori were the reason why we're seeing her show because Lori is compassionate. She has humanity where Michael doesn't. So she's holding his hand to say, even in your last moments, like I'm saying goodbye to you, but we've been through so much for
Mhm.
better or worse together.
Yeah.
So this is me saying goodbye to my boogeyman, just like much like Sydney was saying goodbye to the person who arguably started her whole saga of trauma. So I just think I mean, again, I feel like Lori and Sydney are always intertwined so much, but I love it so much. And again, kudos to Allison where, when Frank comes in and the cops come in, Lori's like, he's dead. Michael's dead, which I do believe when Lori says that, but it's just such a badass moment where Allison goes, not dead enough.
Well,
And then I'm like, oh my
that's
God, let's go.
that's a perfect segue because that of course leads to the procession. And I
Oh,
know that
beautiful.
this is a divisive moment
I don't know
for
why. I really don't know why.
a lot of people. Again, going with this idea of it being a cathartic ending for not only Lori and Allison, but for the town of Haddonfield. And the fact that you get a lot of the players, with I think the exception of Lindsay,
Which
um,
to me bothers me, but I get it. Kyle Richards is a famous Real Housewife, so
yeah,
it's gonna
yeah,
get her
she
back.
had a
But that
commit.
that really does irk me that she's not there in
No,
the
I
procession.
know. I feel
Yeah,
that I like, oh, come on. She needed to, Lindsay needed to
yeah,
be there. But I mean, that's a whole other, we could do a whole other
right,
discussion
right.
about Lindsay.
Business,
Uh,
that's business. Yeah,
yeah, but there's something, again, very cathartic about the entire town turning out for what is quote unquote the funeral of Michael Myers. It's a way of them all saying goodbye and ridding themselves of this boogeyman, this virus, if you will, that has infected them. And look, I mean, I know people have issues with, oh, Michael's grounded up like, meat or something. But you made the point earlier, the movie is called Halloween Ends.
Right. End
So
it.
somebody like it's kind of in the title. Michael probably isn't going to make it out of this. This is not, of course, the end of Michael Myers. You know that. I know that.
This is the end of this
This storyline.
interpretation of
Look,
Michael Myers. Right.
Halloween has been called the Pick Your Own Adventure series for a reason. So like there's something neat, if you will, about actually ending it and finding a way to be like, yeah, he isn't coming back. Like, if they had just ended this with him on the kitchen table and then that was the last we see of him, it would have felt like, well, he's still out there. Maybe he'll show up again. No, they put a stamp on it. He's gone.
Agreed. I mean, this is a movie that had to have finality to it. It's called Ends, and I mean, we'll talk about. I know our last bullet point's going to be what we want because obviously, Michael, it's going to come back. We'll talk about that, but I just think it's so important that they stuck to their guns, and if you're having a movie called Halloween Ends, you end it. And it's not only an end for Michael, but it's an end for Laurie's life as she knows it, where she is triumphant, she is the ultimate survivor, but the ending is not happy. Allison still has to get away, and she does leave. Um, and Lori is just sitting on her porch, and thankfully Frank comes. I mean, hopefully they get together and do it, but it's almost like it's a hopeful ending where she sees, I love when she can actually see the kids running on the street and being happy versus how, Halloween night has always been trauma for her. So I think that Lori has hope and she's hopeful for the future, but she's not happy about Michael dying. She's not happy about anything. She's just surviving like she always does. And she's has a very hopeful, heart and she's hoping for the best in the future. But I mean her granddaughter left, and that's literally the last being of her family that's with her. So I obviously assume that she just need to get away from the town and they will reunite. But it's really not, it's almost like a somber ending. It's not like, rah, rah, let's go, Michael's dead, which I don't think this was that. And again, this Halloween Ends isn't that type of movie. It's very, like you said, it's poetic and like a meditation kind of movie, a meditative type movie. So I don't think that Lori's not going to be doing backflips,
No.
because Michael's dead. She's just like, that is over. The evil is killed, and how can we win? I'm so happy. I mean, I know you know, but I'm just so happy that they didn't go with the original ending because I would have been furious, absolutely furious with that ending. I'm just happy that Lori has some sort of hope in her life.
I'm glad that you brought that up because if anyone has read the novelization of this film, which side note, I wish they would bring back movie novelizations. That's just
Right. I agree.
something I wish was more commonplace. But the ending, of course, that was, I believe, even filmed because we can see glimpses of it in some of the trailers and teasers. More or less, Lori is infected with whatever happened to Corey. And again, sort of maybe not on the same level as Halloween 4,
Yep.
but the implication being that Lori is going to become the new boogeyman. And
Nope. Nope.
that
Nope.
just
Nope.
would have
Nope. Nope.
been one, it would have felt like a cheap sequel ploy, but also, no, you don't turn Lori into Michael. That just doesn't work. I'm glad Lori finally got a happy ending. And yes, it's not like all right, let's go sit around and play bridge or something and bake cookies,
No.
but it's a poetic, bittersweet, okay, we're moving forward. And I kind of like actually that Allison does leave because that's something
I
we
do
never
too.
see in a Halloween film, with again the exception of H2O. We never see the characters get the hell out of Dodge. Like in many ways,
Right.
like it's a
They need their
logical
space
next. You
too.
got to, yeah, exactly. You've got to try to start your own life and get out of that shadow.
That would have been, for me, as being a fan for my whole life, like since I was 6 years old, that would have been a horrible ending to Lori because Lori is not only is she a survivor, but she overcomes the evil. She doesn't succumb to it.
Right.
And that ending really, literally would have said she would have just been overtaken by evil, and that's not my girl Laurie Strode. And I just think that it would have been a cool commentary on evil. But we already just did that with Corey. We didn't
Right.
need to do that again with Lori. And you don't do that to my girl Lori. So I'm thankful,
Yo.
so thankful that she comes out trying again, like I said, she's sad, hopeful, but she is triumphant. And if that would have happened, that would have really I mean the movie would have been great, but the ending it would have been not a good ending for me for the saga. And like you said, it would have been open-ended. It wouldn't have felt as final as this. We literally end on this movie with Michael's mask in Laurie's home versus the original where you just hear his breathing and he's not in sight. So I mean, it ended perfectly, this movie.
And I love the inclusion of Don't Fear the Reaper. I think
Bringing it
again,
back to the OG.
exactly. And again, if you would want to get into like the whole symbolism, yeah, like don't fear death. Like, ultimately,
Right.
you kind of rise above the fear and
And face it.
paranoia. Exactly, confront it and you move on. Like that's if anything, that's the big takeaway from this film is you can be strong enough to face whatever is in front of you and move on from it. I mean, we see that with Laurie, which is
Mhm.
just it's a hero's end, which frankly we don't get enough of that in horror films in general, but particularly slashers. Like there's always a what if or oh what's behind door number three. Like
Right, right,
it's
right.
refreshing to have the characters more or less get a happy ending.
I feel
Be,
like I could talk to you about this movie for 3 more hours,
I
and
know, right?
I mean, like, talking to you now just made me like, I already am in love with it. Now I'm like, I just love it that much more. So I hope when people watch and listen, they can at least understand our perspective. I'm like, let me watch that again and see if I could get a new appreciation for it. It's so beautiful. It's just beautiful.
What are some of your favorite scenes?
Okay, I mean, I really do have to give a shout out to that opening because it did shock
Yeah.
me. I absolutely love the sequence with Corey and Michael. Again, I forget the names, but the doctor and the bitchy
Oh,
nurse,
right.
whatever,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
bitchy one who's bitchy to Allison. I think that sequence is shot so perfectly when you see Corey in the background in the dark stabbing the doctor, but
Yeah.
you don't see it until she turns on the lights, and then when she goes in the house and calls 911, and then Michael just open and then he kills her with the iconic, strangle her, stab her.
Yeah.
Love that. I mean, I love the fight. That's an amazing sequence. I love the junkyard sequence when it is
Yeah.
Corey. I love Corey. I don't care what anyone says. I love Corey going on his rampage. It's funny that the most graphic and gruesome murders are from Corey, but that's because he has all that pent-up rage that
Right.
Michael's waiting to take advantage of in the end. I love the junkyard sequence and I mean, the fight and the procession. I mean, to me, the best part of the movie is Laurie walking up to that meat grinder, just letting everything go. Again, Jamie Lee Curtis's facial expression when she
Yeah.
finally just does it and says goodbye to her boogeyman. That to me is the pinnacle of Halloween when you think of she was cowering in the OG under the couch in that closet, and now she's literally walking up with her shoulders held upright and saying goodbye to him. Oh, it's beautiful. So, I mean, I can go on about the first two, but those are like the ones that really stick out for me. What about you?
Oh, I'm with you 100% on what you have said. I also love just some of the funnier moments. Like I love when Allison is talking about whether or not to go out with Corey, and
Oh,
Laurie's carving a pumpkin.
love
Which I
that
mean,
line.
I love first of how in 40 years
Come
Laurie
on,
has
let's
never
go.
figured out how to carve a pumpkin right. But no, I
I
love it how she's
know.
like grab grief by the I forget the exact line, but it's
Whatever,
just
show them your tits and
yeah,
say, come
shove
on,
your
let's
bare
go.
grief and just
That's
like
quirky,
let's
Jamie Lee
no,
Curtis, and I love it.
again, I love when she just like has those moments, and there's a quick shot where Michael grabs his mask back off the floor, and
It's so
again, it's
good.
just such a quick shot, but I just love that moment where you see the
He's like,
OG is the
this is
OG
mine,
is
bitch.
back. Okay, you had your fun, Corey. It's my show now. Even the scene where Lori um, tricks Corey into him thinking she's killed herself. And again, just
Yes,
it just shows
beautiful.
the resourcefulness of Laurie
Well,
Strode that she's
and
one
you get the
step ahead.
badass. Did you really think I'd kill myself? I'm like,
Exactly.
oh, that's a fist because you
Yes.
also get. I know people say it's such a poetic and pretentious, but you get the fist pump moments too
Oh no,
in it.
there's a lot of that in this
Yeah.
movie, as well as the Easter eggs, like whether like when she's looking out the window and it's like a callback to
Oh,
seeing him behind the clothesline. Like again, this movie has so much respect, I think, for the franchise,
Hmm.
but specifically that first film, that it's trying to honor what John Carpenter was trying to say, which, again, I know sometimes people are quick to say, oh, it's just a slasher film, a guy in a mask, but I mean, there's a reason we're
Ah,
talking about all this 40
right. It's
plus
the
years
reason
later.
why there's 13 movies in the franchise too.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. And that actually brings to a great final point. We all know there's going to be more
Mhm.
Halloween because Michael is like Frankenstein. It's a Dracula. I mean, he is a classic movie character, movie monster, and I am all for a new filmmaker, a new team coming in with their interpretation on this lore. You're given the keys to that station wagon. You're being told you're going to Haddonfield.
Right.
What is your pitch for Halloween
Okay.
number 14?
It's so crazy because again, this is my favorite movie of all time, is the OG, and this is my second favorite franchise. I am someone who's so content with it ending at
Okay.
ends. I know I mean, I'm a realist. Money talks,
Right.
and I know it's coming back. My one wish is don't bring it back until 2028 to do 50 years. Let Halloween Ends at least have give it the respect to breathe as being an ends. So at
Right.
least you have, whatever that's 5, 6 years in between.
Yep.
Do that at least for it. Give it that much breathing room. And you cannot do Laurie Strode again. You have to do something completely different. Jamie Lee Curtis ended her arc. I mean, she can't come back because Michael's dead in that era. My dream is they do the streaming season of The Witch and they bring Laurie and like Allison back and they're like involved in the season of the witch stuff. That would be cool that they're a
Mm,
part of that and just to have that be a streaming show. But Michael needs to be in the big screen. And I just think you need to do something different. You keep it in Haddonfield, but do it as Michael, don't have a connection to maybe not even I don't want to even want to Loomis because again we've seen I mean Donald Pleasance is Loomis. I don't
yeah.
need that.
Yep.
Again, I almost think to just have Michael going like finding a new victim or finding a new we need a new cast of protagonists that has nothing to do with Laurie or Loomis. Just start fresh. You have Michael. I don't even think you should have James Jude Courtney back because I want a different interpretation of Michael
Yep.
too. But have him do his thing. It could be in Haddonfield, but he has to go after a different group of protagonists. Has to be unconnected. I don't want maybe you can have the original canon for the lore of it
Right.
and then have him come back and be going after someone else. Or you can start something fresh but I don't know if they're gonna. I honestly don't think they're gonna start something fresh because I feel like the legend of Michael is so important now to the franchise, where he has to already be pre-existing in the world when they bring him back to the big screen. But I don't want a Laurie Strode character again because again, no one's Jamie Lee Curtis. I respect Scout Taylor Compton what she did, but no one's her. And I respect Malcolm McDowell, but again, no one's Donald Pleasance. So you can't go back to those existing characters. Do something different with Michael. Create a new protagonist to him go after for 4 or 5 movies so we can have that go on with someone else. But I think the legend of him has to at least exist already.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because one, Michael should always be on the big screen.
Oh yeah, that's
I don't want to,
non-negotiable.
no, I don't want to see Michael on a streaming platform, which my hunch is that is what will ultimately happen because,
Ugh,
I think they'll do what they're going to do with streaming, but I think Michael will be saved for the
I
big
hope
screen.
so. I
That
really
that's
hope so.
that's my own hunch and sort of what I have heard through the grapevine. Again, you take everything with a grain of salt, but
Right.
my guess is that is where things will ultimately head. Yeah, I'm with you. Wait at least until 2028, make the 50th anniversary count, and then from there, you know, I think there's a lot of ways, a lot of directions you could go with the series. I'm of the thought, set it in the 1980s because
Mhm.
I mean, with the exception of the 4 and 5 being, specifically set during that time, we've never really had like a mid 80s version of
I like that.
Halloween. So I would do that. I would bring in like just getting really crazy, but like a Ty West or even like
Ooh,
a Zach
to
Kreger's
the
take
director.
on Michael. Like I'd like to see a big name in horror today put their spin on it. and just see what happens. I would even like tie in the story of Charlie Bowles that we kind of hear about in the first
Mm.
film and like really like mess things up, like really kind of go off in a different direction. Maybe you don't even set it in Haddonfield. Like, Michael could be anywhere, and that's terrifying.
Yeah,
Almost
maybe
make
we
him
go
like
out
an
of
yeah,
Haddonfield.
make him an urban legend, almost like a ghost, if you will.
Ooh, I love that. I'm trying to think of what horror directors I would want to take on because I really do think David Gordon Green did a great job, but I'm trying to think who I would want to take the mantle. What horror directors are working today that I'm, oof. I always wanted to see like Wes Craven do Halloween and John Carpenter do
I
Scream,
know. I
but
thought about that.
unfortunately
I
we
know.
can never
Yeah. No.
do that. So it's it's unfortunate that Wes Craven's not with us and John Carpenter is not. I wonder if like what about like Alexandra Aja like going like full on violent?
Oh.
Like I would like I'm kind of like that.
Oh,
I really
that.
like that idea. Or I don't know. I don't know. I think there's so much opportunity with Halloween because now I think that we did the Legacy sequel trilogy and now
Right.
they're not chained down to like anything. They can just have fresh ideas. I hope.
Well, no, I mean that's the thing. I mean, it would be silly to go back and try to redo 78 again. Uh,
Mm-mm.
we we've we've seen it. We don't need to have a another remake. We don't need to have a quasi remake. Like I think the sky is really the limit now, and it's just about having a unique enough vision
Right.
because all I would say is the worst mistake they could make, uh, outside of trying to remake it or going down the
We
road of
already, I mean, we
familiar
already did
characters,
that.
uh, would be to try to explain Michael. No, there is no
He's the
reason to
boogeyman.
peel behind that mask. Like, you know, just make him the boogeyman again. That's all you have to do.
And unfortunately, I love Daniel Harrison genuinely, but you can't do a direct sequel like cutting from 4 or 5 because
No,
it's too messy for audiences and it doesn't work. Jamie Lee Curtis is an A-lister, so it worked for that. Like, and the OG is the horror classic, so that's why it worked for this trilogy. But unfortunately, it's not in the investor's best interest. It's not going to be profitable because you're like, what the like, what are we? We can't go back. You got to start fresh. I love Danielle Harris, but she was the only actress in the franchise who was able to play two different characters already.
right.
So you're gonna have to start fresh, and you can't do that because it just doesn't make sense, business wise to do that.
No, we've already done the legacy sequel route,
Yeah.
and like I said, the way forward, it's new faces, it's new situations. The one constant is Michael Myers.
Michael. And I hope we get a cool actor who's as good as James Jude Courtney, but can put his own flair and his own flavor into it.
Oh yeah, no, James Ducournau, he is one for the books as far as I'm
Oh yeah,
concerned. He was real,
amazing.
yeah, in all three of these films, he brought something to Michael that we hadn't seen in quite some time. But well, I tell you, man, this has been one
I
hell of a
love it.
discussion.
Now I
I mean,
want to
like I
go
said,
like watch Halloween Ends
I
again
know
once we
I need to go watch it, as we speak. Final thoughts on this film before I let you get out of here.
I'm gonna make a bold statement. This installment of David Gordon Green's trilogy will age the best out of all three of them. Mark my words, guys, talk to me in 15 years. I'm not saying I don't love the other two, but this one is something special that people will come to appreciate. It's going to be a cult classic and it's going to have staying power, much like, Season of the Witch has. And we're going to be talking about it for a very long time. I can see it being a midnighter that's showing at drive-ins or like midnight showings for years to come. And it's such a special one. And it's the movie that had the balls to end the franchise for the time being. Take
Right,
the business side out of it and just the creative. This movie ended the franchise. So you gotta love it for that. You got to respect it. If you don't like it, you have to at least respect it and maybe listen to what we said and watch it again and try to be like, "Oh, I see what he was going for even though it's not what I wanted for the ending of the franchise." You have to at least be like, "Oh, I see that and I respect it." So, I really do think it's David Gordon Green's horror little Halloween masterpiece that he has in his hands with this. And I think each installment, whether you love them or not, showed him growing as a more comfortable filmmaker to take risks within the
right,
franchise.
right. Oh, cosign, absolutely. And I'll go a step further because this film has always been right around that 5 or 4 spot in
Mhm.
my ranking of the series. And just between all of the, marinating on it for 3 years, the build up to this discussion, I can comfortably say tonight that this is number 2 for me after the
Yes,
original Halloween.
we did it.
No, honestly, because there's just something bold and different about this movie. And again, I love 18. I really love all of these films. I mean, some I
Of
put off
course.
over in a corner, and don't speak to. But there's just something about this movie that gets to what I think Carpenter and Deborah Hill, for that matter, were talking about in the first film. This one
Mhm.
has the most story, if you will, of any of the Halloween films post the original. And there's just something unsettling and weird and creepy, but also cool at the same time with what's going on in this film. I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis's best performance uh, it, it, outside of the original, because that's again, it's in its own little space, but
Right.
it's certainly, I think, the best of the 3 films she did under David Gordon Green. And like we have been saying over and over again, it manages to end the story, which again in horror, that doesn't happen all the time. So yeah, this film, it's always been high on my list, but I can say tonight it is number 2 after the original.
We
So
did our job tonight,
I
then. We
know
did
we
our
I
job.
know we did. So come at me in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. But no, I do. I really love this film.
So, and again, it makes sense because I know people say whatever, but it does have, in my opinion, the most parallels with the original. So the fact that it's side by side for you makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it really does feel like a natural conclusion
Yep.
to what that film sets up. So yeah, I adore this film, and I know there are the detractors of this movie, but I really do feel like you said the reappraisals are coming, and I think again, like I said with the Hollywood Reporter article naming it as the
Yep.
second best slasher of this
I
decade,
love that.
that again, people are coming around to it, shall we say, and I think that's a good thing. And again, Rowan Campbell continues to be involved in the horror
We
genre.
love
He
it.
was in The
We love a horror
Monkey.
king, a
Yeah, I
scream
know
king.
he's going to be in the Silent Night,
I'm
Deadly
so
Night
excited
remake,
for
which
that.
like again, you know, justice for Corey. You know what I mean? Like
I
again,
agree.
so I think there's going to be I look forward to the inevitable think pieces and op-eds that are written in 10 years after the film, or maybe less. I was wrong about Halloween Ends or Halloween. Like, it's
Yep.
going to happen.
It's coming. It's
Oh, yeah.
coming. Don't worry.
We were there first. That's all I can say. We
I
were
was
there.
there opening night in 2022. I can't believe it's
No,
been 3 years already. It's
I know.
crazy.
Like I said, 3 years, and we're still talking about it. And we'll be talking about it 3 years more and then some. But, well, Anthony, man, this was absolutely fantastic. This was bloody fantastic. So,
Thank you so
uh,
much. I love talking Halloween with you.
oh no, like I said, this has become a yearly tradition. So, we'll find one of the films to talk about next year. Maybe we'll tackle Rob Zombie next year.
Oh,
That'll
we
be
got to.
honestly. I feel like we're building up towards that one. I'll have to take a year of advance and courage and whatnot to revisit those. But before we go, please feel free to give a plug for your show. What are you guys talking about for spooky season this year? And of course, where can people stalk you in the best possible way on social media?
Yeah, guys. So me and my buddy Nolan, we talk horror every week. Phil's been on a few times. We're gonna have him on plenty more in the future. Of Never Split Up podcast. Follow us on social media, YouTube. We have a really stacked spooky season coming out. We actually are gonna be releasing our top 10 creature films soon, and we're gonna have like a Saw 3 episode, Hereditary. We're gonna cover Halloween Kills. We have to discuss maybe having you on for that. We're gonna do our top 10 horror remakes for Halloween. We got a lot of goodies coming up, so follow us there. And you can follow me personally on Anthony DePuzzo at X or Twitter, whatever you call it. So thank you for having me again. I had a blast, and I cannot wait to talk horror again very soon.
Like I said, The crypt is always open. The microphone is always ready, my friend. But on that note, everybody, thank you again, Anthony, for coming back on the show. And yes, please, if you are a fan of all things horror, check out the show that he and Nolan do because it is fantastic. And I say that as a huge fan of the genre. They are killing it with their shows week after week. So keep doing what you're doing, guys. It really is some good stuff. But on that note, everybody, thank you as always for tuning in. Of course, you can stalk me in the best possible way on social media. All the plugs are in the show notes. But that does it for today's episode. I'll be back next week where we'll do this all over again for the love of movies.
Still at the movies makes every movie